That whatever the rest of it is. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, like other.
This is just marketing.
Thank you. I'd like to call the village board meeting for the Village of Cary for Tuesday, October 15th, 2019 to order with roll call, please.
Weinhammer,
Here.
McAlpine,
Here.
Collier,
Here.
Betts.
Here.
Thank you. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving to the open forum where the public is invited to make an issue-oriented comment on any matter of public concern not otherwise on the agenda. I had nobody formally sign in. Is there anybody here who would like to address the village board on any other matter than what we're here for? Okay, I'll go ahead and close open forum at 6:01. A few things on my agenda this evening. I have a couple proclamations and a couple of promotions. So we're going to get going with a couple proclamations first. The National Red Ribbon Week, send a message, stay drug-free. Whereas substance abuse is particularly damaging to one of our most valuable resources, our children, and our contributing factor in the 3 leading causes of death for teenagers: accidents, homicides, and suicides. And whereas it is the Global Red Ribbon Week and the Village of Cary to involve families, schools, businesses, churches, law enforcement agencies, and service organizations in all aspects of this campaign and establish an atmosphere that supports awareness, education, and ongoing initiatives to prevent illegal drug use. And whereas the Red Ribbon Week campaign theme promotes family and individual responsibilities for living healthy, drug-free lifestyles without illegal drugs or illegal use of legal drugs. Now, therefore, I, Mark Koenig, Mayor of the Village of Cary, do hereby proclaim October 23rd through the 31st, 2019 as National Red Ribbon Week in the Village of Cary, dated this 15th day of October 2019. One more, World Polio Day, October 24th, 2019, whereas the Rotary Club of Cary Grove is a member of the Rotary International, the world's first and still one of the largest non-for-profit service organizations founded in Chicago, Illinois in 1905, and whereas Rotary in 1985 launched Polio Plus and spearheaded the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, which today includes the World Health Organization, U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, UNICEF, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to immunize all the children of the world against polio, and whereas polio cases have dropped by over 99.9% since 1988, and the world now stands on the threshold of eradicating this dreaded disease and thereby eliminating the threat of polio-caused paralysis to every child in the world. Now, therefore, I, Mark Koenig, Mayor of the Village of Cary, do hereby proclaim October 21st, 2019 and World Polio Day in the Village of Cary, and do hereby encourage all residents to join Rotarians of the Rotary Club of Cary Grove in the fight for polio-free world, dated this 15th day of October 2019. Thank you. Now we have some exciting times. I always give the chief and Director Morimoto some time. It's all about the police department tonight. Sometimes it's all about public works, but tonight it's about our awesome police department. So we have 2 promotions tonight. And if I could, I'm going to start with our new Deputy Chief Winkleman. I'm going to have you come first, please.
Did you decide who's going to pin your badge?
We need a picture. He looks so nice.
First, I was going to say a couple things in regards to soon-to-be Deputy Chief Chris Winkleman. He was hired as a police officer in Cary in April of 2003, and he was promoted in May of 2014. He's held the positions of patrol officer and sergeant within the department. Some of the things that he does, and he's very detail-oriented and organized. So he's coordinated the field training program previously. He coordinates the with, I'll say, Sergeant Victor, and assisted by Perry Mercury and Trish Malone, the accident investigation team, and they use a Topcom total station, which is a pretty elaborate piece of equipment that they had to learn how to use. He coordinates the Citizen Police Academy, and we currently have a session of the Police Academy going in progress right now, and he's doing that in conjunction with Sergeant Victor and Officer Williamson. He coordinates the department meetings and identifies training topics, and we'll have one of those tomorrow night. So he's very busy. He's currently a member of the police pension fund board, and he coordinates the college intern program. So the structure of the department is that we have a field operations side and a support services side. Deputy Chief Nadenoff formerly was in charge of the field operations side, which is patrol and the direct delivery of services to the community. Support services supports that mission, and that is the delivery of services to the community. Deputy Chief Winkleman will be in charge of a number of people, and with people come problems sometimes. And Deputy Chief Nadenoff will be moving around over to support services, and he'll be in charge of things and administrative functions and things of that nature. And I can tell you that this doesn't come a moment too soon, because Deputy Chief Nadenoff feels very overwhelmed. So what I'd like to do is call up whoever's going to pin your badge on.
Did you want to get the rest of your family? Sure. If Cheryl and the kids come on out.
I was going to remind him not to forget his wife. One thing you don't forget is
It's Colton's birthday today.
Aw.
Great birthday present, huh? That's good. Well, I need your dad over here. You guys can stand right next to me.
There you go, that's perfect.
Exciting day for you.
It is.
I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled. We've got a great succession plan built up here through the leadership of Chief Finland. Scott Nadenoff has been outstanding in his role. It would be nice to see him transition to the next thing. And I'm delighted that you're taking this role. Couldn't happen to a better guy right now. So without further ado, let's make you a deputy, okay? Let's do it. Want to raise your right hand? I state your name.
I, Chris Winkleman,
Having been appointed to the office of Deputy Chief
having been appointed to the office of Deputy Chief
in the village of Cary,
in the village of Cary,
in the county of McHenry aforesaid,
in the county of McHenry, aforesaid,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Deputy Chief
of the office of Deputy Chief
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Deputy.
Now, thank you, Mayor. I'm pulling up right now.
She'll probably do a better job.
Almost tickled.
I was just gonna say.
Nope. There you go. There you go.
Oh, I have that.
Could be blood on this one.
Yeah. I shake, I shake.
That's okay. It's a
Comes
big day.
with old age. What if I'm shaking? What's my?
Good succession plan.
She would probably be the best one for the job. See, I touch it.
It'll be a long ceremony.
You wanna try? We have to open up. There you go. Ah, takes two of us. There we go.
That's good.
Yeah, there we go.
Got it. All right.
We need a little bit of a signature.
All right.
Excuse me. There's two copies. Okay. First one. This one is for you to keep. Thank you very much.
All right, do a quick picture.
Quick picture? Okay.
Why don't you get your mom in there?
Yep. Over here, Mom.
You someone please?
Here,
Or
look
if I
at my
was?
buddy.
That's right.
That's a fair statement.
Like five.
Right,
Perfect. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
Greg, are you ready for this? Did you want to bring anybody in your family up?
My wife.
Again, another fine young man in our police department. I've gotten to know Greg over the years since I've been around doing this job since 2013. Had quite a bit of experiences with this young man, both professionally and personally. And it's awesome to see the succession plan that we're building. That's the core strength of our organization, is that we're building from within. We're bringing strong leaders that are going to bring the next force up through the leadership of Pat Finley. So Pat's got a few things I think he was talking about.
And I also I'm remiss in not introducing our two police commissioners that are back there. Jim Levicki, he's chair of the police commission, and Jeff Prager, a brand new, I said that right, Prager? All right, a brand new appointed commissioner. Dory Shanakis was unable to make it today. She had a previous obligation. So in terms of Detective Rudson, because Greg is currently assigned as a detective in the department, he was hired May 2003. He's held the following positions within the department: patrol officer, school resource officer, and detective. He supports the department's mission by doing the following tasks or functions. He's a defensive tactics instructor, a taser instructor, a first aid instructor, a AED CPR instructor. He fills the role of officer in charge. He was an Explorer advisor, still are? Okay, yes. Okay, Explorer advisor, field training officer. So he will stay in his current position as the sole detective in our department. We have a school resource officer as well until January 1st, when we transition over to everyone else's reassignments. So that's all I have to say about Greg, other than he does a really good job in our investigation section.
He's a darn good guy. Yeah. You ready for this?
Yes,
Raise your right hand, please. I state your name,
I, Greg Rutson,
having been appointed
have been appointed
to the office of police sergeant
to the office of police sergeant
in the village of Cary,
in the village of Cary,
in the county of McHenry, aforesaid,
in the county of McHenry, aforesaid.
do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of police sergeant
of the office of police sergeant
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Sergeant. He's got one, huh?
Yeah.
There you have one.
Did you want me to wear this too? Hey, I'm wearing, I was given a pin for our police department. I'm all about our police department. So,
I was thinking about myself.
I just want to.
I don't know, this would be better.
who gets this one?
I just want to illustrate that this is going to be more difficult pinning than
Yeah.
on the shirt, because it's harder to go through the plastic sometimes. And
She's got it.
They're gonna beat us.
It's always a competition.
And while they're finishing this up, I just, on behalf of the village board, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, especially our fellow officers and command staff that are here today, and our police commission. It's very important that we have this community support, and thank you guys for coming out for this. It's exciting for us.
Thank you, everybody.
is there anyone else you want to introduce that's here?
I have my aunt back there, my Aunt Jan. I have my mother-in-law, Vicky, my father-in-law, Chuck, my sister-in-law, and her son, Jameson, and Sarah, and then my brother-in-law, Pat.
All right.
Why don't you all come up here and we'll get a
There you go.
Everybody come on up.
And in the interim, we'll have a cake and coffee reception up in the conference room, which is off the main lobby here after this.
He has his in-laws too here.
All right. Good. All right, thanks, everybody.
Before we answer the family, I met your mom and your mother and father-in-law. You want to get a picture with them up here too?
He's not really asking you, Chris. He's kind of telling you you're going to do
We got another
it.
family.
Get everyone over here.
Who's taking the picture?
I am Christina Harris. Look at her phone.
Okay, where do you want?
I know it was cracking. Yeah, it was starting to crack. Yeah. Yeah.
You need a different word.
Hmm.
1, 2, 3.
We can go,
Yeah, I got what you're on. Thank you. You got it. You got it. All right.
elevator.
Just trying to improvise.
Got to manage the risk.
Would you give this
I
to
saw
your
you shaking your head.
I didn't shake my head.
I used your mind. Thank you. I think so.
That went much quicker than I thought.
Excuse me.
Depends on how long, depends on how long Brian's going to talk.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good. Very good.
Back to business. Trustee reports is next on the agenda. I have not had anybody offer anything, so we'll go ahead and bypass that. I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items number 1 through 5 is shown on the village's website and is displayed on the video monitor during the village board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Betts,
Yes.
Collier,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
McAlpine.
Yes.
And Weinhammer.
Yes.
Thank you. And items for separate action, I will entertain a motion to approve a waiver of certain application requirements for the planned development application related to the development of the Selkie property.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Brian's going to lead us off on this.
Thank you, Mayor. As the board recalls, earlier this year, the village went through the process of updating a new unified development ordinance that replaced our existing zoning and development regulations. And as part of that process, a new procedure for reviewing certain developments was approved within the code for planned developments. Specifically, planned developments are required for any property that is developed that is greater than 2 acres in size within the community. And also any property that's within the B1 or B3R district in our downtown area would also require going through the planned development process. The development process was designed to have flexibility within it to review different types of developments that would come in. It's just by those 2 criteria that would require planned developments that you can see that different types of developments, if it's a small 500 square foot addition to a building in the downtown area, would have to go through the zoning process for a planned development versus a similar size or a similar project would be development of a 60-acre parcel, would also have to go through the process if it wasn't for a single family development. So within the code, there are certain procedures to review planned developments. Specifically, in the slide details kind of the 5 steps or 5 major steps for reviewing a planned development. It begins, as with any zoning application, meeting with community development department staff to review the proposal at a conceptual level, and then determining what type of approvals or process is required with the developer and staff before it formally goes through a zoning process. After that conference or meeting with staff, petitioner can submit a request for certain waivers of certain requirements within the code, the application requirements that was required approval from the village board prior to the formal submittal of an application, which is essentially what the request is this evening. If approved of those waivers, then the formal petition would be filed. That would go through the zoning process for a public hearing before the zoning board, where a recommendation would come out of that recommending body to the village board for final action and review of the petition. This slide summarizes the application requirements that are within the code. Specifically, most of the requirements are on this slide are similar to what was in our code previously. Basically, plans and the application need to include the name and address of the owner. If the applicant in the case is not the owner, there needs to be some sort of approval in the application that the owner allows the applicant to file a petition on their behalf. Their required plans include a plat of survey, site plan, building elevations, and landscape plan associated with the project, and then statements of how the project will comply with the standards within the ordinance for either, in this case, a plan development, but previously it would be the conditional use or variance standards that we have within the code. Additional requirements that were added as part of the plan development process include the substance of any covenants or easements that are proposed on the property. So if there is a restriction for the use of a particular portion of a property, those types of, that type of information needs to be provided as part of the application so that it can be reviewed by the board to say certain retail uses would not be permitted in a commercial development as an example. Other applicant or application requirements would be required would include a development schedule as far as the timing for developing the project, traffic study, economic analysis study, copies of environmental impact studies that are required by law, village services demand analysis, off-site utility improvements, if any are required for the project, a drainage plan, and then written summary of open house comments if open house component of the plan is required to be held as well. The petitioner can request a waiver of any of these requirements per the code. So if it doesn't apply to the specific project, again, if you looked at a small building addition for something within the downtown area, the village may not require certain aspects of the plan. If it's a small addition, we may not require a traffic study to be submitted for that type of project or impact analysis to be performed, as the impact of the project would not be major, but per the code would have to go through the PUD process to ensure that any addition complies with design standards of the general feel or look of the downtown area. For larger developments that may have more of an impact on the community, the village can require these to be submitted as part of their applications. In the proposal that the Selkie property, the developer is looking for approvals related to the preliminary PUD for the project. So there's no specific development proposed at this point that would develop a building on the property. Essentially what they're asking for approval is with this property, the Thornton's gas station, which is going in on the corner, is in for permits now, and that was the start of the process prior to the adoption of our current codes. So they are developing that gas station under the previous zoning ordinances that we had, where that use was permitted by right, and there's no variations or any additional relief that was requested for that project. What the developer is seeking approval for preliminary PUD is to accommodate that parcel by creating the outlot for the gas station, but also developing a plan as far as how the rest of the property would be developed around that parcel, and then also creating lots that could be developed further in the future. And then the final component of that is to approve or seeking approval of a plat of subdivision to create that lot. As the project does not have full development plans at this point, the developer is requesting a waiver of certain PUD requirements are summarized on the slide, which include the open house resident meeting. A landscape plan is the plan would be developed as a project were to come in. Offsite utility improvement plan is no offsite improvements are proposed. Building elevations, proposed covenants, traffic study, economic analysis study, environmental impact studies, and the village services demand analysis. This slide shows an overview of what the proposed plans would be for the preliminary PUD. As mentioned, or as shown on the slide, there will be essentially 5 lots of record would be created. Lot 1, which is on the corner of Jandis Cutoff and Route 14, would house the Thornton's gas station. And then lots 2, 3, and 4 would be future developments to be determined, but would create those parcels and the access roads around the lot 1 of the Thorntons to be able to access those properties. And then finally, lot 5 would be the stormwater detention in the rear of the property, which would be graded and accommodate all of the potential development that could occur on the site and comply with McHenry County stormwater regulations. As mentioned, or as should be mentioned, at this point, the developer is only asking for preliminary PUD approval, so this plan would just show the layout of what the lots would be. Future development would require an amendment to the PUD, so that if lot 2 were to have 2 users come in, or even 1 user, that project would still have to go through the zoning process, come back before this board and also the zoning board to get formal approvals for the project. So more developed plans would need to be submitted at that time for a site plan, landscaping plan, and building elevations for review by both the zoning board and village board for approval. This plan is just to lay out what the development could occur, but could be more fluid as development and the market dictates what will take place on the property. This plan looks a little hard to read on the slide, but is the proposed grading for the property. You can see where the detention basins would be located in the rear of the site. The proposed lift station is in the southeast corner of the property, and then utilities would be proposed to connect water through the property and sanitary sewers across the front of the property that would tie it back into the lift station when constructed. Finally, the portion of approval that the petitioner would be seeking would be the platted subdivision that would create the lot 1 on the corner of Jandis Cutoff and Route 14, and then the second lot would encompass the rest of the development, which would be further divided as development occurs on the property. So the requested action this evening is developers just seeking general consent from the village board to submit a formal zoning application for the proposed preliminary PUD. As part of that, they're requesting the waiver of the certain application requirements which were identified in the previous slide and also in the staff report. Staff has recommended approval of both as presented this evening. A couple of items of note, again, would be that the waivers are only applicable to this current zoning application. So any future development may have to provide additional documentation related to those developments or request waivers associated with that future amendment. But then any building permit submittal requirements that would also be required, such as IDNR approvals or permits for different type of work on the property would still be required through the building permit phase. This waiver is only for documents that would be submitted for the zoning application review. Developers here can provide additional feedback or information regarding the project, but be happy to answer any questions you may have as well.
Any questions from the village board?
I'd like to hear from the developer, and if there's anyone else who wants to talk about it first.
I just had a question. Who came up with the division of the property this way?
The developer.
The developer did, okay.
What size is lot 3? I can't see that well.
They're all over 2 acres, aren't they?
Yeah, so any development that would occur on the property, so lot 3,
It's like 4,300 square?
it's over an acre in size, is slightly over an acre.
Doesn't it have to be over 2 acres to come?
So the entire parcel is a good question. The entire parcel for the entire Selkie property exceeds the 2 acres in size.
Even though when it's subdivided into lots, it's still a property
Correct.
as a whole.
Correct. So the preliminary PUD would approve the entire layout as you see here. But any future development that would occur on the property, even if that parcel is under 1 acre in size, would still have to go through the PUD process.
Okay.
Yeah, good question.
Any other questions for staff? I can ask the petitioner to come up to answer your question. Jeff, did you have a concern on that? Let's hear it.
I'm just kind of looking at it. So the drainage basins, then, that kind of just determines, then pretty much we're locked into what we have here. If we go ahead with this development and that. So then we're going to have the 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Yeah, no.
But they can still
It could still
change
be-
that. It's still fluid. In other words, if someone came in and they wanted to take lot 4, and they wanted to almost like reacclimate that and have 3 different things in there, they'd have to come up and get all of the HUD requirements met, but they also could, this is flexible.
Correct. So stormwater retention is laid out here, kind of maximizes the development that you can have along the frontage along 14. As development may occur, that there's certain detention requirements that would need to be for volume based off the amount of impervious area that's provided on the property. But there is potential the ability that if a larger user came in that wanted to take more land than what Lot 2 provides, if the stormwater detention was not constructed, Lot 3 could become a larger stormwater basin, and Lot 2 could extend back into the rear portion of Lot 5. There still is flexibility from that perspective, and developer might be able to get more information as far as how the sequencing may occur for development as development comes in.
My main question too is the reason that this is being done is really for the developer, is it because you find that this will be more marketable for the property? I mean, why are we going through this step?
Mr. Maud, could you come up and address a couple of these? Just state your name and address for the record, please. And maybe you could start off by your vision and what you think is happening, and maybe market feedback, or why you think this is going to be applicable.
Right, how we came up with this whole
Right.
thing. My name is Brian Maud. I'm the manager, also Nervous, of the NBI Carey LLC, who is a contract purchaser for the 14 acres at Janus and Lot 14. First, I want to thank you for allowing me to present this proposed development of this property. I've actually started back in 2004 with this, believe it or not. I used to be a Walgreen developer, and back in 2004, I sat down with Mr. Selkie and his wife trying to buy that corner for Walgreens. And I think he was in his mid-80s at the time, and he wasn't ready to retire. He wasn't ready to downsize. So he said, thank you, but no thank you. So fast forward to 2016. 2008, the market stopped, everybody knows, and I went into brokerage, commercial and residential brokerage, always with an eye towards getting back into development. Around 2015, I could see some, a little bit of stuff going on. Nothing big, but smaller deals. So I went back to some of my older projects. One was in Lake Zurich, one was in Crystal Lake, one was in Deer Park. Going up to the Crystal Lake project, I go by this corner all the time. I decided to see Mr. Selkie again, see if we could work something out. Now he was in his mid to late 90s. He was thinking differently. He said, yeah, I'll sell this property, but you're going to have to buy all 14 acres. And I said, that's a tough order in this market today, today's world. There aren't very many big box users developing. You have grocery stores. I think I gave you an aerial in that package that I provided tonight.
Okay.
You can see you have the 2 jewels that are to the north and south, I'll call it, or east and west, and all the development that's going on around those. So I told him there's not really, I don't see a big box guy coming in here taking down 14 acres. I also see it being hard to fill it up with little users, since most of the people who are active are already in this location. But I did have 3 users that I targeted when I sat down with them. I said, I think I can get 4 or 5 guys out here. Unfortunately, by the time we signed the contract, Starbucks went up by the Jewel, Dunkin' Donuts went up by the Thornton Oil, Burger King went right across the street. Those are my 3 big guys. Plus, I knew I could get a gas station, probably car wash there. So that's the origins of that. He gave me 2 years. He knew it would take a while. After about a year and a half, I went back. I said, look, I'm not getting enough interest. On the back of the package I gave you today, there's everybody I've reached out to for the last couple of years trying to get any interest in this. So far, it was mainly the gas station, and I've got some car wash guys circling. So I actually went back to him. I canceled the contract. They said, look, I can't do this. There's not enough interest. We parted friends, and shortly after he passed away. His family reached out to me after that and said, you know what, let's do something. Let's get something going here. We understand what the market's like. So that's what brings me here tonight. That's kind of how the project, as an overview, evolved. With this, as far as the layout on the property, let's see. And this is And this is my past, I've done some multi-tenant retail developments. One was in Crystal Lake, Aurora, Plainfield. Plainfield and Mundelein were both 20-acre deals. That's where I met the Walgreens guy and started doing Walgreens deals for a number of years until the meltdown. So these are those different projects that I did or worked on. Am I going the wrong way? Okay, so that's probably good right there. Forgive me. So the way the property lies, it falls from the, I'm going to call the Jandis cut off the west side of the property to the east. There's a pretty big drop off across the side of that property. They put in a big detention pond right in the middle, which serves the northern half of that property or the western half of that property. The other half, everything continues down. The most valuable part of the property is the frontage along 14, so it just made sense to put the detention ponds along the train tracks, which is the least valuable part of the property. So that was the thinking of where we put those. Right now, we currently only have the gas station under contract to go in there. That's why we're doing it kind of the way that we're doing it right now. But based on my past experience with these other projects, you got to get the pump primed. You got to get something in there, get something going. Then when the commercial real estate guys drive by, they're going to see that and they're going to say, right now they go by, they say 2 years. And these guys got to they got to provide projects for their companies or they get fired. So once we get the Thornton Oil going, we'll get the stormwater in, we'll get the sanitary and the water improvements all in there. Then they'll look at it and they'll go, it's 6 months. And when they say 6 months, I think they'll be more motivated. It'll help immensely to get that going. As far as why we have the 5 lots there, we're just kind of generalizing, just kind of guessing, who might go there and the sizes of commercial retail properties could change overnight. Somebody could come in and say, we want to take the whole back or we want to take, one whole half of the site. It's open. So that's the greatest flexibility for the property. Detention ponds actually don't have to be built at this point in time because that big one is sized to take care of the whole western portion of the property. I hired the same engineer who did this originally for Selkie and got it all approved. So we know that could all be developed and we wouldn't have to touch the pond. But the idea is, let's get some more guys in there and then we would potentially shift the ponds, fill in the big one and move them, relocate the existing. So I think that's it. So we're here tonight and I think Brian did a great job laying out what we're looking for.
Did that answer your questions?
So you're buying the entire parcel?
I have a takedown contract with them, take down as the parcels, as buyers come to the table. The family changed the mindset. Mr. did not want to sell off parcels, therefore it sat there.
Okay.
Once you got it carved up and get things going, it'll be easier.
I'm happy with the gas station development and that, but I'm just a little hesitant to lock ourselves into this detention pond here and this and that. So as long as you're saying that we have the big one in the front that can still handle the current development that you're proposing. And then,
Those will handle this as it's drawn, but the big one will handle if we just put the gas station in.
Correct.
More than enough.
so then it still leaves open the back parcels for development.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
it's totally flexible.
Yeah, it's a fluid. It's all can change at any given
Okay.
time. But this is just to get some motivation. Is there any questions from the audience regarding this?
Yes.
Would you like to step up, please?
David Miller, 65 Highway 14, Cary. I'm just concerned that they want to eliminate the economic analysis study and then environmental impact studies. For a fluid thing, it's too fluid to say, well, we don't need to have those kind of studies because who knows what's going to come in there. So I think it'd be important to keep those studies into it. Landscape and the open housing, that's all pretty much, doesn't really make any.
Director Simmons, could you address those concerns, please?
Dave, what was the second thing you were?
Economic and environmental.
The environmental.
Oh, environmental, okay.
Yeah, environmental and economic. Yeah, so the plan development process requires certain the application requirements to be completed. depends on the scope and scale of a project, whether the village board wants to require those types of studies be presented. So the economic development analysis will look at what the impact of a project would be on the community as far as additional revenue that would be generated, or what the potential costs for the village to provide services to that area would be. In this particular development, at this phase, there's not larger users are proposed, so we don't know exactly what the impacts are going to be. It's essentially proposing to apply a subdivision for the property, to subdivide it to allow for the development to occur. And then also the other studies that are required, again, would be related to a specific project, whether that would be something that the village board would want to see submitted related to development. If it's a larger development of multiple acres, and the site is 15 acres, could be a 40-acre property or something like that, where you would have more of an impact on the surrounding properties, that you'd want to see more studies be provided to analyze that project, or a larger density that would need to be submitted to review that project. So it's up to the board's discretion if that's something that would want to be requested. In this particular case, staff and the petitioner is requesting relief of that, as they don't believe it's pertinent to the current plan. But as new development occurs, they would be open to potentially providing that documentation if it's necessary for whatever users come into the property in the future.
So we're not waiving it.
It's only a waiver.
We're just saying right now, based upon all we have is Thornton's, and we can't go back to ask for something on that anyway because it's done.
Correct.
But because there's nothing else there, when any developer comes, we have the opportunity to come back and say we want an economic study or we want an environmental impact study.
Correct.
They have to do that.
Correct.
Well, they don't have to
Yeah,
necessarily.
any new developer that would, if
They
so,
could ask for a waiver again.
Right.
correct. So if this
That's what they
goes,
still have to ask.
Right.
correct. So if this goes through the zoning process as today and the waivers are granted, it's only to this application. If another developer comes in to lot 2, or 2 users come into lot 2, those projects would have to go through this process again.
Right.
To be reviewed, and that would include site plans, building elevations, landscape plans, and then any other studies that would be required at that point. That developer or that project could also request a waiver for their project, but it would be specific to their application, not this one. This wouldn't, any waivers that would be granted here would not go forward to future applications.
This makes sense here. I mean, we obviously don't know who the users are at this point. We can speculate, but right now it's just to carve out that lot for Thornton's and create other lots for future potential development.
Just so I make sure that I understand, and hopefully maybe it will click a little bit more. This is all new for the Village of Cary. This is our very first PUD that we're putting together. It is my understanding that this, by authorizing this, it just gives the developer an opportunity to subdivide his property to make it more marketable. When a suitor comes and decides that they'd want lot 2 or lot 3, they still have to come to the village board and still have to abide by the requirements for the PUD. So all these things that they've checked that they're looking for waivers right now, they would all have to abide by those. And it will be up to the village board to either approve or deny those particular waivers.
So
Is that correct?
why exempt them now then, if they're going to be?
Well, because we don't know, I mean, it could be.
Right.
They don't apply. We don't know what's going to be, but we're giving the developer an opportunity to market the property to the best of its ability.
Right.
By saying, okay, he's going to go to market now. It says now that instead of 14 acres, I've got 14 acres that are subdivided into 2 or 3 acre lots. Would that be more appealing to you? Would that be something you're more apt to develop? And then say Acme, whatever, comes in and says that they want to do this. They have to go through our process. They have to go through the zoning. They have to go through the village board in order to get these things taken care of. So in essence, we're not waiving anything for future development. We're waiving it so that he can go to market. Is that pretty much what?
But they could do storm traps instead of the retention ponds, correct? Like parking lot storm traps for retention, water retention?
Sorry.
You could do a water storm trap like under the parking lot instead of doing a retention pond. Do the storm traps they do, so give you more buildable space.
I suppose, but,
I think is
I suppose we
it
could.
could be done, right? So that which has more environmental impact than what a regular catch basin does. So there's so much unknown here. The way the environmental study or whatever goes into it, I think it's shallow-minded in the village board, not the say, it's one thing that it's very important to the community, is environmental impact to it. You know, that I don't know why leaving it in, how is leaving it in hinder you?
Okay, so the storm trap is very expensive to put in.
No, I'm talking about the environmental impact study. How was that, if they didn't waive that,
Doesn't apply.
how does that affect your saleability? That would be detrimental.
I think the Thorntons came in before, correct me if I'm wrong, before the PUD, so it wasn't required at that time.
Right.
It will be built to the standards
Mhm.
of any gas station being built today.
Right.
Which takes care of all that.
Yeah, I know, but I was saying, you know, you're asking for it to be, you know, waive the economic or the environmental impact studies. You know, waiving it worries me.
They're not waiving it on the
Hey.
first one because it's not part of the.
Right, no, I'm talking about what you're asking to
Dave.
be done for future development out there.
No, it won't be
Dave,
waived in future.
Could you address the village board and we'll direct him? But I think that we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves.
Right.
All that this is we're technically not waiving it. We're pretty much delaying anything that comes in. We're just giving him an opportunity to go to market and subdivide the property. Anything that comes in is going to have to abide by these. It could change. Like, why would we not give him an opportunity to provide the best opportunity for the village of Cary? And we want to make sure that all the boxes are checked accordingly.
Oh, yeah.
And that this board will be responsible for that, and as well as the zoning. They're going to have, anything that gets plugged in here is going to have to go through the zoning.
Right.
It's part of the new requirements. And then it has to come to the village board. It's part of the requirement. So we'll be able to address these things at that particular time. When staff first meets with a potential developer and the developer, they come together, Brian will lay this all out, what is expected of them. And it will include all of these things that we have talked about tonight, including the things that we're postponing, for the lack of another word than waiving. We're just postponing it until we can get somebody in here to say, this is what we're going to do, and give them that opportunity.
That a future developer could, or builder could ask for waivers of. They have the ability still to ask for waivers of some of these items in the future.
Well, what concerns me is why is it in there in the beginning, in your plan that you guys developed over the last couple of years, and now you want to waive it, or delay it? I don't know what the advantage of delaying it would do. Still got to be done. I feel if we delay it now, it's easier to delay later. We delayed once, well, why don't we just do it again? That's my concern.
But
I just don't see why it's in the code to be done this way, and then you say, well, it's easier for them to do something, so it'll take us out for now, and delay it later. It just worries me.
There's no user
Right.
for the
there's
site
no
right
user.
now.
Right.
Yeah, so we don't know what the economic or the environmental study would be for.
Right. So they wouldn't have to do it until they bring a plan up.
Right.
So, you know, so why,
That's what's occurring then.
it's not being done now until the developer comes. So that's why I'm not understanding why it's being waived. It's not being enforced now until something comes in, correct? You don't have to do anything.
I don't know if it's necessarily
Yeah,
being
there's no
waived right
environmental
now, it's
impact
because
until you
there's
get a-
nothing for it.
This is a part of the PUD process.
clarify what he
This
said?
is a part of the PUD process here. And that's why the waiver is being asked for.
Christina Anderson, 65 Highway 14. I think his question, and correct me if I'm wrong, is why do we have to pass this now in order for him to subdivide? Like, why are we going through all these motions right now? Can he subdivide without doing the whole big waivers of all this stuff and market it? Right?
Correct.
That's what I'm.
Can you respond to that?
This is the zoning overlay for this whole piece of property. It's starting with the Thornton's development.
Correct.
To move forward with this development, you need to subdivide the property. So he's proposing to
Yes.
subdivide the property, and then he's showing you a preliminary plan for what may come next as part of the PUD. But you need to have this plan in place as the initial development starts.
So you have to have
Because-
the permits.
Because this,
There's no permits.
right, this PUD governs the development on the whole piece of property.
Conceptual drawing.
Right.
Conceptual
Gotcha.
plan.
All the properties will relate to one another under the PUD, as opposed to a single lot development where the bulk standards all relate to the single building that's going to be on the property. This is, all these lots relate to each other. That's what the PUD is.
Right.
And it grants greater control to the village, greater flexibility and control to the village than otherwise would exist. That's why the PUD mechanism is in the land development code at this point, and that's why the waiver exists. So this development can begin to move forward and allow as the developer is indicating, allow other interested parties to look at this as a developable site.
But this isn't set in stone.
No.
So we're waivering something that isn't set in stone.
All these
anyway?
requirements will continue, all the requirements you're looking at right now that have been discussed continue to exist, and they will apply to the first development that comes with an interest in any of the lots that are identified in this PUD. All of them then will reapply to the next development.
Why do we need to delete these now?
Just so you understand, there is no business that has expressed an interest in any of the property that can complete these studies.
Okay, right, so until, I don't know why we're addressing these until development comes up.
It's only temporary. It's only for the period until we get our next interested party in one of the properties out
Why is
there.
it beneficial to the village of Cary? The delay.
So the gas station can move forward
Well, that's moving
and the
forward.
development can
That's
begin.
part of PUD, correct? The gas station's going forward no matter what.
They need to
There's nothing to do
parcel out.
with this
They
new,
need the PUD to create the plot
Yeah.
that
Right.
goes on. So they need to plat a subdivision approved for that development, so it has to go through this process to allow for that site and also the utilities to go through the rest of the property to serve that. So it is a step that's necessary.
right. But the elimination or the delay of these other things to it affects it to keep going forward. How? If they don't delay it, if you don't delay these, if you make them do all these things or say, you gotta go through it, is it gonna stop the process?
Well, let me give you an example, a concrete example. He's asking that the landscape plan, there are different elements he's asked for waivers for. We can't do a landscape plan
Right.
for a non-existent use. There are no other users here. There are
Right.
no other property,
Or elevations, right, right.
right, there are no other owners that have an interest in those properties right now. So until that happens, the various aspects of a PUD can't be required. So for now, we have one lot, one interested property owner, one owner ready to go forward.
Right.
We need to put the PUD in place for that initial development to take place. But we don't have any other users that we can relate to require development plans for, landscape plans, elevations. They don't
So-
exist yet. They're still required.
Why did we require these at all then? Why don't we
Because-
delay all these things?
because
then?
if
Only
as-
delaying 6 out of the.
If as this gentleman
let him
stood here
finish, let him
tonight,
finish.
if he was ready with 5 users,
Uh-huh.
it would apply to all 5 of those owners today.
Right.
As this PUD is being requested. It's not the case.
Correct.
No, I don't, when you say correct, I'm not sure.
Fine, it's like.
So when you say, and this is just my so when you say that we have an owner for the lot 1.
Right.
Now is this being waived for them? Or
They already are
part of the PUD, correct, or no?
Their application came in before the code was updated.
So they are exempt from all of what's happening right now?
Exempt from these new requirements,
Right,
correct?
right, right.
They still have
Okay.
other requirements that they're,
So, but it's not subdivided yet. So how does that work?
that's what we're doing right now. We're subdividing this. So if you look at this, so now that they can build their access roads,
Yeah.
now you got to delineate where these lot lines are going to be. So by giving them an opportunity to divide these into marketable lots, you're therefore trying to complete all your zoning requirements and that stuff. But anything that goes there has to go through the process. They're starting from scratch. They have to come and.
The
but
other
we're-
3?
The other 3 or 4 or whatever. This could be maybe one
be one
use.
big lot.
One big one, it could be one big
Can I
one.
do that?
I have no idea.
Christina.
I all of a sudden start moving?
No, Brian did that.
I did that, so.
Well,
Yeah.
we're doing, I think what it is why we did this for our new UDO is to protect the village. We want to make sure that our interests are always met.
Okay.
And by doing this, it gives us all, you hate to use the word control in government, but it gives us control over what's going to go there. So not anything can just go there. We are going to control the process. They have to come to us. They're going to go through 2 professional boards to get things done. And we'll make sure that all of these requirements are done because we have to, because we now have a PUD in place. So that even the smaller lot has to, even everything in there has to abide by our PUD. And the reason that it's being subdivided right now is because you're going to have to divide the one owner right now. He needs a plat of survey.
Right.
That's going to be done. How it's going to relate to the rest of the PUD, that may change because 2 and 3 may come together, or, they could wrap it around, it could change. It's fluid, but we're giving him an
I still
opportunity.
understand why we have to eliminate the environmental impact study, because I'm very much in the environment.
I understand. I think this board is very much involved in the environment too. So I don't think
Take that
that,
check off there, I'll be really happy.
And those
But it has
requirements
nothing to
too.
do
Wipe that one out.
And the impact study is not specifically related to a site. It's anything that's required by law for them to submit. So if the IDNR or IEPA requires a study to be performed on the property for development, those are the types of plans that would be required for the PD process that they would need to submit as part of a zoning application. They still would be required to provide necessary approvals for any utility improvements or things like that that may be required for connecting to, they're doing work along IDOT. IDOT may require, if you're widening Route 14, they might require a environmental impact statement or a study for that widening. That would be something that would be required as part of their permit submittals, or if it's done in advance, they can do it as part of their zoning process. But it's not to analyze what the impacts of development would be on the surrounding area, within, say 2 miles of the property or something like that. It's specifically look at what type of improvements are on the property, if there's any wetlands or other sort of improvements that would be sensitive to development, and then encouraging that those be reviewed as part of an application. In this case, they're specifically subdividing the property. They're not actually impacting resources or things that are on the property that have already not been redeveloped in the past.
So just to summarize really quickly, I just want to make sure, in reality, what could have happened today is we could have come and just pulled out lot 1 and left everything as 1. The other thing, just say, here's your plat for this property for the Thorntons. But instead, he's trying to take it to the next level and say, hey, if these are the places that I may market, they're probably not going to be looking for they're looking for a smaller footprint. Therefore, that's why I think it makes it more marketable for the developer to do it this way. However, whoever does come, we're still going to make sure that it meets all the requirements. We're not waiving them, we're just looking at a way to get
That's
it,
why I don't understand why we're delaying it.
because we have
Why
to
are
do,
we delaying it?
because we have to do a plat
What
automatically.
purpose of delaying it? That's why I'm not.
because we don't know what's going to go there.
Right, I know. So why delay?
Well, you can't,
There's nothing to do with
there's
it.
nothing to, yeah.
So why ask for it to be delayed? That's what I want to understand.
Does the board
That's
have
part
any
of
other
the-
questions?
that's part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
I do understand it, and I spoke to Jake about it earlier, and I think the attorney did a really good job explaining, the example with landscaping, that you can't put landscaping around something where you don't know what's going to be there just yet.
Yeah.
So,
Or anything,
Environmental
even a
impact
traffic
is gonna
study.
be No matter
for
what
example.
goes in there, whether it's 1 lot or 50 lots or anything else,
It'll be
environmental
done.
impact is going to be something that's got to be looked at eventually.
Right.
So I don't know why it's being deleted, why it's being delayed. Because
It's-
whoever comes in there, they still should have environmental impact.
They will.
They will.
will.
They will.
Yeah, right.
They will.
They will.
So but why is it checked off here then?
But just for this particular, it's just for this particular petition.
Right.
Just for this one. It has nothing to do with,
Future development.
anything new that comes in is going to have to start all over again. They're going to have to go through the process. They'll meet with our staff. Our staff will explain what their obligations are for the PUD, and we'll move forward that way. They'll go through the zoning process, they'll come through to the village board, and then we'll check all the boxes to make sure that the environment is okay, the economic is okay. The open house and resident meeting, if that applies, that'll be, so you'll have an opportunity to talk in depth with them. All these different things, like, we're concerned about IDOT, a traffic study and the curb cuts and all that. That all will come into play when somebody that is, that's valuable, that's going to come in and want to invest in the village, and we'll give them an opportunity.
But as a reminder, these are environmental impacts, studies that are required by state law.
Right.
Okay.
that you guys are waiving?
No,
We're not waiving.
Delayed.
Delaying.
Because there's nothing.
They're
So-
delaying.
Still haven't got the answer about why it's got to be delayed.
Because there's nothing there.
There's
I know.
nothing.
So here's
Because
my
it's
thing
part of
is,
the UDO already.
Yes.
the clarification, just really quickly, you could just parcel off 1, you could just parcel off Thornton, so it's not multiple, correct? It's easier to
Subdivide
parse.
this, it's up on the board there. So the plan of subdivision is creating just the lot for Thornton's on the corner,
Okay,
and then the rest of the site would remain as a full lot.
okay,
The preliminary PUD shows a plan that how it could be subdivided further.
could be, but that's just an option
Right.
to market.
Just
Correct.
Conceptual. So
Yeah.
Yes.
the approvals they're asking for right now are just to create the lot for Thornton's.
Mhm.
Specifically that lot, and then an overall plan
And there's no reason to do the environmental stuff because that's regarding the vacant lot, not Thornton's, because they are under a different code, correct?
We can't do that.
When you're waiving this PUD, it's for the remaining property.
Correct.
Is that what we're talking about?
Thornton's has already been approved. That was
Thornton's already
before
been
we
done.
adopted this new code. Now that we've adopted this new code, any new development that comes in and meets this criteria has to fall within that.
And with the PUD, that's including runoff and everything from Thornton's that's coming onto the existing property? That's going to be handled or has been handled?
Yes.
Yes.
Stormwater that's on the property, serve Thornton's and the rest.
Did anybody have any other questions?
I do have a question. So this is more to Brian. So when you're going to,
Which I have
Other
two,
de-
Brian.
Yeah.
Brian Mott,
Yeah.
so when you're going to ask developers for lot 2, 3, 4, you're going to show them then this plan development application requirement? And will those boxes be checked off?
No, they'll all be subject to these. They'll look at them. If they feel one of them doesn't apply to them, they can always check it off, but that's only asking. And then it's up to you guys to
Okay,
decide
so
if you're going to waive it or not.
Yep.
But they have to look at that and they have to adhere to that.
And there will be
Okay, so
coordination
then
too
they'll
between the
check box.
developers and
This is
builders
just
with.
procedure that
Brian
we're
Smith.
just really going through.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
One more question.
Okay.
I'm still not really satisfied here. Good. If the environmental impact study was left on, there's nothing to be looked at or anything else to it, does that make a difference in getting this project going? Is there any, I don't see a reason why environmental impact study is being waived or delayed. It doesn't have to be done now for anything being done there. It's not something they need to do to get Thornton's in, correct? Or would they have to do that to get Thornton's in?
Well, I think that if we deny their waiver on this, that means that he would have to go through with that now, but we don't know what he would be evaluating. There's nothing to evaluate.
And Jake, you stated that it's required by law to be done anyway, so anybody who would come here would have to have an environmental impact study done? Or am I misunderstanding?
If it's required by law, they would have to do it.
So an environmental impact study doesn't apply to Thornton's project going on here at all? Waiving this doesn't affect what they're doing? They're exempt from that? Or does this exempt them from any additional
They still have to comply with any stormwater regulations.
environmental? Okay.
Permitting, either IEPA or.
So the reason it's checked is because it doesn't apply to anything being done. The reason it's checked here to be waived is because it doesn't apply to anything
For this.
current. It doesn't affect Thornton's or anything else I'll do
You
it.
got to carve out
Right.
Thornton's out of this whole thing.
Right.
They're not part of what we're talking about right now.
Other than we
Actually,
need to
what
give
he's
them their
doing,
lot.
what he's doing is to simplify it, I guess, even more, he's really dividing the property into two pieces right now.
Correct.
And then, but his vision is the new the potential of 5 lots, we'll say. It could be 3 lots, it could be 6 lots. I don't know. It depends on how somebody comes in and whatever the use is. But remember, Mr. Miller, anything that goes there, you will have an opportunity to discuss. This board will have an opportunity to review, as well as our zoning. And I think we toe the line on a lot of these things, as we've demonstrated in the past. We're not going to let anybody get away with, shenanigans, for the lack of another word. We're going to make sure that all of the things that we need to be required are met. And I believe the board will back us up on this, and we'll make sure that
I think the board's done a great job. I'm not denying the board doesn't do a great job to it, but
We're
I was
just
just
trying to
more
give-
concerned that this environmental impact study was being waived for Thornton's or something else going on to it.
No.
But until something gets on there, it's being waived only because it doesn't apply to that, because there's nothing else being developed.
Well, and also gas stations they have another
They got their-
licensing,
they
they
got
have
a
their
whole
own
nother
thing that they
standard,
got to do.
yeah.
Yeah, so, in addition to what we require, that they will meet all those
It
bars.
just didn't look good to me.
Well, you'll have to take our word for it. Yeah, we have
All right.
a great
I
staff.
appreciate your
that does-
time and putting up with me, and
Sure.
good luck.
Anybody else have any questions regarding this matter? Anybody else on the board? Roll call, please.
Well, while we had Mr. Maud here, I don't know if there was any questions from the packet that he submitted here tonight from the village board about interest on the
I
property.
think it's pretty interesting. I mean,
Did you have anything Brian, that you wanted to add about the property and development interest?
Not at this time, just
Okay.
move forward with what we
I
have.
do, I have a question, if there's other places that we think that would like be like Potbellies. You know, looking at this tracking record, Potbellies is not on this list at all.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of users out there. Only certain ones are expanding in today's market. A place like Potbelly's is going to go like you see in Deer Park, where there's much more commercial development going. Schaumburg, Naperville, those kind of areas. As you can see from here, this is kind of an in-between site. You have the Jewel up here at the west and the other one down at the east. All the people that are developing right now are pretty much in here right now. Not to say I'm not going to try and get them. I'm going to try and get anybody I can. Brian's been forwarding people who call him assigned and let me know. So I am trying to get more people. I would love.
Olive Garden.
I would love to be here today with a fully laid out development.
I go for Maggiano's.
So, okay.
Any other questions? Did you have anything else you wanted to add? I think we're good here.
Good.
Roll call, please.
Collier,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Weinhammer,
Yes.
Betts.
Yes.
Thank you. Administrator's report. Jacob, you got anything for us?
Very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Mayor, Village Board, I just wanted to remind everyone on the board and then also our residents too of a new refuse and recycling hauler. Flood Brothers is going to take over here for advanced disposal. That is going to start on December 1. So Flood Brothers will be sending out information mailers to residents here if they haven't been sent out already, allowing folks to pick the size of their refuse and recycling card. So look forward to more information via mailers and then also on our website, Facebook, Cary News Weekly.
Thank you. Chief Finland?
I feel like I have to do it for everyone.
We'd love to hear.
We'll be having a drug take-back collection on October 26th. So we'll be staffing that at the police department. In addition, there'll be the Halloween walk that walks through the shopping center from Tasty Sushi to Jewel, actually beyond at the Athletico. That will be staffing as well. And then finally, Thursday, there'll be a senior citizen health fair at St. Peter's and Paul that will also be staffing as well.
Thank you, Chief. Director Simmons?
Just a brief update to the board and also the public in general. The Cary Senior Living Building, which is going up behind Jewel, they're nearing completion of their construction. I've talked to the developer. They are now fully leased and have a waiting list for the project. They're planning on having a grand opening, ribbon cutting on December 3rd at 1:30 p.m. So the board is invited to attend that if you're able to attend. That's a project is coming to near completion. It will be another nice addition to the Village of Cary.
Thank you, Brian. Any future agenda items and discussion by Village Board? Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss personnel collective bargaining, Illinois 120/2C2, and closed session minutes review, Illinois 120/2C21.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are no nays.
Well done. Yeah. Have a good night.